Thank you, fellow councillors and Mayor and Deputy Mayor. If you could join me now in the karakia, we'll get the show on the road. Whakatehao ki uru, whakatehao ki toga, kia pai, e hiaka, e teo, e hiuka, ki he Māori ora. Thank you. We have no apologies. So I don't need to move a motion, I presume. We have, if anyone has any conflicts of interest, could you tell me? Nobody has, thank you. And we would like to confirm the minutes from the last meeting. Somebody can give me my little clicker, I'll be able to vote as well. Thank you, Sarah. Could those who haven't clicked, please click. Tony, we're waiting for you to click. Thank you, that is passed. There are no items not on the agenda, and now we have public participation, and our first public participant is Jade Musher, and she is going to be online. And Jade, are you there? Oh, you're here.
It's going to be over here.
Gosh, you're a real person, not just a...
Yep, not a talking head.
There you go. 5 minutes. Oh, sorry, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You get 10. Yep.
Kia ora koutou. My name's Jade. I am speaking on behalf of Cahoots today, and I'm speaking about the installation of trans flag public art in Berempore. Cahoots is a non-profit which works to support women and gender diverse folks in practical spaces like DIY and the trades. We're currently building a workshop for that community, for our community, in order to create a space that is empowering and safe and supportive. And that connects very closely with this public art issue, because that is about creating space which is inclusive and welcoming and supportive. And so I wanted to start by talking about the trans experience in the world a little bit, give a little context. And it's pretty heavy, but I think it's really valuable context. We had a report come out earlier this month from Counting Ourselves, which for the first time included information about threats and violence towards the trans community. 1 in 5, approximately 20% of trans folks have experienced threats of violence in the last 4 years, and 10%, 1 in 10, have experienced actual violence in the last 4 years. In terms of major mental distress, 9 times higher than the background population, that's 72%. And so I just wanted to sit with these numbers a little bit, because it provides context for that experience. This is the norm for the trans community. There is a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of marginalization. That's what we experience on a daily basis. And so support is really important, and support comes from different places, and it can come from council in the form of leadership and funding, council funding Pride, things like that. And in this instance, came from the Berempore community. The Berempore community wants to paint Berempore as a safe space for trans folks. They want to say, you're welcome here, you are loved here, you are supported here. And in doing that, those actions are really, they have real world effect. There's research into this, and the imagery and welcoming spaces, community, public art that supports trans folks has been shown to reduce some of that mental distress, has been shown to make spaces feel more welcoming, make trans folks feel more connected to the community. And so a trans flag which represents us as a community, as a minority, as a marginalized minority, is a potent symbol of that. It's something that Berempore wants to show proudly and wants to say, you are welcome here, you're supported here. Wellington is obviously a queer city. It's twice the number of queer folks here as in the rest of the population, as we found out in the last census, about 12%. But being in Wellington in the trans community can feel like walking in two worlds. It's a world you're split between a world of support and peer community and a world of hate and fear and disinformation and discrimination. And as we saw when Posey Parker came to New Zealand and spread that disinformation and spread that hate crimes went up. And so we're at a very important moment as that hatred, as that discrimination grows. We can make a choice to either, we can't make a choice. We as the trans community are small, we are marginalized, but the ally community can make a choice. The allies can decide whether or not they're going to let hate and disinformation go unchallenged or whether they're going to challenge it. And the Berempore community wants to challenge it by putting public art in place to support trans folks. And they'd like your support to do it. Any questions?
Thank you. Yes, we have one from Councillor O'Neill and then Chancellor Chung.
Ngā mihi nui, Jade. My pātai is around Berempore being an excellent location, but did you have any other ideas where telling trans stories or having trans visibility would be helpful in the city?
Yeah, I think honestly trans community is everywhere. Trans community exists throughout the city. And so anywhere could be an appropriate place, but because of the importance right now of allyship, rather than trans folks coming forward and waving their own flag, but allies waving the trans flag to say, we support you. Given the importance of that, I think the communities that put themselves forward to do that, the communities that stand up and say, we want to do this, are the primary targets. So Berempore stepped forward and said, we want to do this.
Chung.
Great, thanks very much for coming in. You were talking about Berempore, sort of the sort of most people in Berempore sort of agreeing with this. Have you actually discussed this or met with the other organisations there, like the Residents Association?
I'm going to leave that to the next speaker because she's going to speak on behalf of
okay. Yep. Okay. Great. Thanks.
All about. Oops. Thank you very much, Jade. Thank you. And our next speaker is Karen Pollock. Thank you, Karen. You have also 10 minutes.
Kia ora koutou, Mayor, Chair and Councillors. Thank you so much for having me here today, and acknowledgements to you too, Jade. First of all, it has occurred to me that many of you may not have seen the trans flag crossing that was very briefly in my neighbourhood. That's a photo of it there. It was in the news, so you can Google it, but there it is. So you'll see that it was only part of a new pedestrian crossing, the middle bit where people stand before they cross. I'm here today to represent the community of Berempore with respect to the trans flag as street art or a mural proposal. I've lived in Berempore since 2005. I am the co-editor of the 2015 book Berempore Stories of a School and Suburb, and have been an administrator of the popular, highly engaged local Facebook group Berempore Peeps for many years. Wellington City Council's Facebook page is a member, and it's apparently a rising contributor. The small but mighty trans flag addition to the new pedestrian crossing on the Luxford-Rintle Street intersection had a big impact during the short period it was in our community earlier this month. I think it was less than a week. I know this from talking to people and also through social media. Using Berempore Peeps as a metric source, posts about the crossing had by far the highest engagement of the 196 posts made so far in that group. That number alone should tell you how engaged. this group is. More importantly, those posts allowed people in our community to record their feelings. The response to the trans flag crossing on Berempore Peeps was overwhelmingly positive, and I cannot stress that enough. I'd like to share some comments. Oh, wow, this made my heart jump a happy skippity jump right in front of our old home, 5 hearts, Berempore love forever. I heart you, Berempore whānau, heart, heart, heart. This warms my heart so much to see, smiley face with hearts. It shows how much it means for Berempore to showcase a welcoming sense of belonging for the wider community and that all are welcomed, pride flag, trans flag, way to go. I feel happy for our community. With all the hateful things happening in Auckland, it gives me hope. Love this for Wellington, heart. So cool. Did WCC do this? Love it. There were many more versions of love this, amazing, wonderful. I firmly believe this feedback in Berempore Peeps, which is the most vocal way that people express themselves in our community, shows that the flag united our community. As Jade has alluded to, we know that Wellington is the queer capital of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I use queer as a catch-all term. The 2023 census showed that 11.3% of 15-plus Wellingtonians identified as queer, compared to Dunedin at 7.3%, Christchurch at 6%, Palmerston North at 5.8%, Hamilton at 5.6%, while Auckland sat at a surprising 4.9%. The national figure was also 4.9%. The difference between Wellington and other main centres is substantial and meaningful. This data is underpinned and explained by a long history of people moving to Wellington from other places because it is relatively safe and welcoming, and I acknowledge what you said earlier. I believe the positive reception of the trans flag crossing by Berempore residents shows our great wee suburb is a microcosm of Wellington as a whole. It's the right place for a permanent flag, and done right, it could become a local icon. So why is it important Berempore gets its trans flag back for good? Because our community loved it. Because our trans whānau in and around Berempore have told us it meant so much to them. Thank you, Jade. It promoted community engagement and feelings of pride. Trans people, 0.7% of our adult population, are under renewed attack by bad faith actors globally and sadly here. You probably are aware that Destiny Church, who made a lame attempt to disrupt our Pride parade recently, are, in my view, our local Trumpians. As good citizens of this world who know that people living their authentic lives are treasured and productive members of our community, it's time to step up and publicly demonstrate our commitment to trans people and the LGBTQI+ communities more broadly. Public art is powerful. It gets noticed and it sends a message. The impact can be profound. As a queer person myself, a lesbian, I can tell you that seeing yourself represented in your community in such a visible way means you feel safe, supported, and truly seen. Safe, supported, and seen people contribute positively to society and the economy. The trans flag crossing was an artistic version of the wider community wrapping their arms around queer folk and specifically trans folk. Do not underestimate the power of public art in fostering social cohesion and all the verified benefits this brings, as outlined in your own social wellbeing framework. The people of Berempore want our trans flag back. I respectfully ask on behalf of my community that you, councillors and mayor, ask your officers to work with us to make this happen. Berempore people took the initiative, albeit unsanctioned, the first time around. We want to do it properly this time and to make it permanent. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We've got a question from Councillor Free.
Yes, thank you. And I'm not unsympathetic, but I'm just wondering, what support do you need to actually start the process, as you say, more formally this time?
I mean, well, clearly what happened earlier was a guerrilla action. And while I understand that the people who did it researched it thoroughly, used pavement paint, which we, I thought would have been a safe paint. It was deemed to be unsafe and it was removed. So clearly it's no good to do something like that when it gets removed a week later. So obviously it's a road, legal road, and council needs to, I guess, give permission. I don't know about NZTA either. Obviously, funding is involved. The people who did it the first time round paid for it out of their own pocket, so I don't want to overestimate that. That's not a driving force. Basically, the community, as I have heard, wants the trans flag back, and so we are coming to you for support in doing that.
Okay.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for coming in. A very eloquent presentation, thank you. I'm just wondering, have you engaged with the other groups in Berempore, such as schools, residents association, businesses, to gauge their feeling? Because I'm always keen to get a wide sort of expression of.
Fair enough. Not precisely. Partly because this has all happened extremely quickly, but all of those groups are on Berempore Peeps and are represented. I strongly believe that the engagement that we had in that very active group is representative of our community. Absolutely, we can go and specifically talk to organisations like the Resident Association. I have to say that is a very small group with a little reach. But nevertheless, yes, it is a group, and we can canvass the businesses. I'm very confident that the outcome would be the same. There'll always be people who don't support it for various reasons. On the Facebook page, we had maybe one or two people questioning it, and that was largely because, firstly, it was an unsanctioned act, and secondly, they were concerned that anything permanent would involve ratepayer money. It's the same issue that comes up time and time again. Whether those people had other concerns or motives, you might say, for that, I don't know, but they would have been maybe 1% of the people who engaged.
I've got another couple of questions, so you might just sort of... Councillor Abdurrahman.
Thank you for coming. And as a local councillor, I received a lot of email of support, and I haven't received a single email opposing it. So just to confirm to some of you, my question is, why do you think is the South, especially Berempore and Newtown, is such a cool place to live? Is that because of diversity? Is that because of the diversity?
I've only got 20 seconds.
You've only got 10 seconds to answer that.
Well, my answer would be I tried to see whether the census data was granular enough to see if Berempore has a high queer population that is not available yet. All I know is that it's a very welcoming, inclusive suburb, and I am happy to still use those words. They're so important, diversity and inclusivity. So it is a perfect place for this.
Great, thank you very much, Karen. That's the 10 minutes, thank you. Now we have Julianne Genter, who has 5 minutes as an individual. Thank you, Julianne.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Julianne Genter. I'm a Berempore resident, but I'm also the local member of parliament for Rongotai. And I want to back up what Councillor Abdurrahman said. I received a lot of supportive email about the Berempore crossing. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge the locals who had the vision to do that and who executed it, I thought, very well. I biked right past it a number of times, including in the rain. I thought it looked excellent. It looked very safe. It looked very professional. And I think it would be wonderful if the council was able to find ways for locals to have these creative initiatives in a safe way. Because it obviously saves a lot of money and time for the council when locals do stuff themselves. So I thought it was really awesome, and it's a shame that it couldn't be kept, at least for Pride Month. But I do understand that the council has certain rules and regulations and standards that they have to adhere to. I'm here to speak in support of the motion that there is something that is replaced to show the support for the queer community. And I think there's very, very high support amongst the community, at least from everyone that I've spoken to and everyone who's reached out to me. And I do believe that if there was strong opposition, that I would have heard something about that. People do not hesitate to email their MPs complaining about things they don't like, and I did not get any email to that effect.
Thank you.
I'd love to just leave it open for questions if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Actually, Julianne, I've got a question for you. I've been involved with the Miramar community's efforts to actually put up public art at the cutting in Miramar, which has been very, very difficult, but they are paying for it. And I'm a very strong supporter of the Miramar community's efforts, but it hasn't been successful to date, but hopefully it will be soon. But they are paying for it. Do you think the Birampō community should pay for this work of art, or the ratepayers of Wellington in general should pay for it, if we do reinstall it, that is?
Well, I mean, firstly, I'm supportive of the Miramar community's attempt to get that public art up, and that was a really impressive initiative. Miramar is much larger than Birampō. I mean, Birampō has a small number of residents relative to the Miramar Peninsula and a small number of businesses. So I don't know that they have the same resources. I mean, they did pay for the paint and use their own time to put the original crossing in. But I do think since it was the council's decision to remove it, then maybe it's more the council's responsibility to put up something for a replacement. And I understand that doing a similar crossing would be far more expensive than the option that's been proposed today.
Thanks. Councillor Pettit.
Thanks, Julianne. I presume you would be happy to help us give strength to NZTA's elbow when people want to do initiatives like this. You know, we did have some tricky issues over the Dixon Street crossing.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, as someone who's worked in transport planning, I can say that sometimes the engineering standards are too inflexible and over the top, and they add additional cost for no additional safety benefit. And I realize that a lot of that is set by the New Zealand Transport Agency. I know there was work done when I was an associate minister and the previous term of government when I wasn't, to change those temporary traffic guidance and to make it easier to use street art and creative street crossings, because we know there's benefits to that. There's actually benefits to painting on the road in bright colors in terms of raising awareness of the priority of pedestrians. So yeah, I think those rules need some scrutiny, and a lot of additional unnecessary cost is put into making these artistic street crossings possible.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Julianne. I'm just wondering, have you talk about the people that have actually come to you and the people will complain to you if they don't like something. Have you actually reached out to different groups? Because I find that even with myself, you're looking at a similar sort of demographic all the time. And so have you actually engaged with other residents there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a local, so I, walk my child to school and talk to a lot of different people in the community. And I did some media on the crossing and I did some social media on it. And I do believe I would have heard if there was anyone who was really opposed to it. But what Councillor Adjournment said was that this is a very diverse neighborhood, and it is. And I certainly think that I'm exposed to the diversity of the people and their views.
Thank you very much, Julianne. That's you're timed out. But thank you very much for your submission. You can go back to
Thank you very much.
Now. Thanks. We will now take a short adjournment. Now the public participation is finished. Thank you very much, by the way, for the other participants for that. Just where officers want to organise the amendments. So there'll just be a 5-minute break. starts with the submission of the draft Wellington Regional Public Transport Plan 2025-2035. And I'd like us to welcome Sean Ordain to introduce this report. Oh, sorry, what? And oh, sure. Sean.
Good morning, councillors. Before you is a submission to the Greater Wellington Regional Council on the Public Transport Plan. This is a document the Regional Council has drafted in Public Transport Authority for the region that sets out its priorities for the public transport network for, I believe, the next 10 years. The submission before you has been drafted very quickly. We received the draft plan only at the beginning of the month, and so it has been quite an effort to get it to committee. I'd commend Joe and Tessa, who are sitting behind me, for that effort, and also the councillors for running such a constructive amendment process in lieu of a workshop that would normally be held on such a matter. And with that, Chair, if we would move to questions.
Councillor Paddock.
Thanks for all your work, Sean and team, really appreciate it. Seems appropriate. I did have a question around these the special needs of public transport users, and you gave an answer in your questions, but it doesn't mention a group of people like the rainbow communities, maybe some ethnic communities. We know that there is some harassment around there. So I didn't move an amendment around it, but would you recognise that there are some groups of people that are vulnerable to particular kinds of bad behaviour on public transport?
Absolutely. Public transport is part of life here in Wellington, and people face challenges in all parts of their lives. It's no exception for public transport.
Okay, thank you. And just the other question I had, it seemed to be saying in the submission that we don't want to have too many fare concessions because then we'll get too much demand and then we'll need extra services. My question is, I appreciate that that costs us more, but isn't that a good thing? Don't we want more and more people getting onto public transport?
It doesn't cost us as the City Council anymore, but it does as the travelling public.
Well, it does actually, because we do pay for some transport infrastructure. So it's an important policy point. Do we want to encourage more people onto public transport?
So the stated goals of the city through the long-term plan are to move more people with fewer vehicles. So public transport is a key element to the transport network to do that. The balance between fares and subsidies is a fraught one. And it has touch points with many other parts of your policy platforms as a council. So, for example, we also seek to densify the city. Being able to live closer to work should be able to create efficiencies in cost for people who do that, and you want the right economic signals to be sent. And so we have to, in our feedback to the regional council, assist them in making that balance.
Sean, I have a question. It does seem to me to be rather odd that the Regional Council would only provide us with their draft plan at the start of the month and give us less than a month to actually respond. Have we not had any prior engagement with the development of their public transport plan? I mean, do they operate highly exclusively and proactively exclude us from participation in the development of public transport policy?
As part of the development of this plan, myself and some members of my team and some of the other teams and councils attended a workshop at Greater Wellington last year, very early on, largely to give a picture on where future demand for housing and business would be. And we reviewed a few paragraphs of the Wellington City specific section, but the publishing of the plan was the first time we'd seen the entire draft.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions of Sean at this point? Councillor Free.
Sean, this might be one that you can't actually answer, but how are we going with our MOU with Greater Wellington on their contribution towards damage caused to our roads by the overweight buses?
I'm afraid I can't answer that. It's not within my area of control.
Can anyone else answer that?
Through you, Chair, can I comment, if you like?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So we've been talking to Greater Wellington about that issue, Councillor, and we are thinking about bringing that back through the Regional Transport Committee as a submission into government. I think that's where we got to, is it, Liam? Yeah. So it's rather than just doing it with Greater Wellington themselves, actually taking it back through as an issue when government's considering road user charges and changing the whole way that use of roads is done in New Zealand.
Can I ask a further question?
Sure.
So until that happens, how is it going with our current MOU with the Regional Council?
That I'll have to take some advice on and come back to you.
Councillor Chung.
Great. Just on from Councillor Free's question just now, my understanding was that we actually had this agreement, and it was a binding agreement, wasn't just a friendly agreement, that over 3 years ago that we agreed that we would assess damage to our roads and charge Greater Wellington accordingly for any damage to the roads. Is that not correct?
Partially correct, Councillor. So we have received a payment based on that MOU, and as the Chief Infrastructure Officer has advised, we're going back into negotiations with Greater Wellington about how the council can be compensated. This is a matter not only for us from an electric bus point of view, but there's also other buses and trucks out there that cause damage on roads, and the settings do sit ultimately up with NZTA, and so it is a sort of collective discussion about how we manage our road network based on the electric vehicle weights on our roads and the damage they do. So an ongoing discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Free.
Would it be fairer, though, to say that because the buses stop and start quite a lot and pull in and out of bus stops, and they're doing it on the same route a lot, would it be fair to say the damage they cause is pretty noticeable compared to the damage of other heavy vehicles?
I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm not a public transport expert, and I'd be speaking out of my lane on that one, excuse the pun.
I get some advice later from somebody on that.
I think actually, maybe at break, I think one of the Greater Wellington Regional Councillor staff are here that can perhaps answer that question.
I would actually be quite interested in hearing from our road people, so maybe someone like Brad Singh or...
Sure, I'll arrange that with you.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions. So, sorry, we've got one from Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because these are slightly different, and is it just numbering to what's in the paper in front of us?
Who answers that question?
So to clarify, the paper that you have in front of you with the amendments, all of the amendments will be put into the substantive, and there has been one change where we're adding all of the clauses as 2.1, 2.2. So the numbering has changed to what you have in front of you. But all of the amendments will be in the amended substantive.
Okay, so can I ask a question about the amended substantive?
Sure.
So I was just wondering, Mike has died.
Okay, you can't answer the question now.
So I was just wondering, two of the parts of the amendment seek to amend clause 29 in the submission, so I was just wondering how they interact.
I would answer that if my microphone would work.
They've all stopped.
Oh, this one working. Oh, they're both working now. I'll turn that one off then.
Speaking stereo.
Yes. There are the two amendments to 29 have been collapsed into a single amendment. So the clarification will reword the first paragraph, and then the addition will be added after that paragraph.
Is that okay? Yep. Good. That's the end of questions. So, sorry. Yes.
So I think you might have answered my question, but I'm not quite sure you have. So it's about item 1.1, number 4, and amend the draft submission to delete and replace this sentence with, does it mean replace with this sentence? That's what it means.
Yes, that will be just a drafting error.
Yeah.
Well spotted. Thank you very much. Councillor Free.
Just a very minor point about the number 7 on our piece of paper, which is around the bus priority lanes. I think it should be including, not include. I know it's fussy, but...
Yes. Any typographical errors we will fix using the chairperson's delegation.
Right. Is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Randall, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. The Regional Public Transport Plan, currently out for consultation by the Regional Council, is their 10-year plan for public transport. And it's a very important document for that reason, right across the region. I do encourage everybody who's listening to look at it and have a think about submitting on it. This submission is part of the City Council's continued working with the Regional Council and NZTA to ensure all elements of travel through the city are getting better and are well aligned. The submission gives the Council feedback on fare settings, park and ride charging, and support of all the other elements that will improve our public transport. Fares are a person's contribution towards the cost of their travel. It's actually their private benefit for the trip, if you like. It's what they are going to pay in lieu of the cost of travelling by car. And it's important that those fares are competitive and are encouraging for use of public transport so that we can deal with traffic congestion. The Regional Public Transport Plan has a principle around this, which is that fares should align to distance. In other words, if you travel 5 kilometres, you should pay the same fare no matter what the 5 kilometres are. The City Council notes that there is an inequity in the current fare regime, partly due to us having maybe smaller zones, which means that we pay higher fares for the same distance travel. The travel from Kōrau into town is the same cost as travelling from Lower Hutt to Upper Hutt, but obviously the distance is much, much greater. Our feedback asks that the Regional Council action their principle that's in their plan and really look at to ensure that fares across the region, including with respect to Wellington City and the rest of the region, are equitable. But overall, our submission is supportive of the Regional Council's public transport plan. Their success will be our success. We support park and ride. For example, charging, and we just note that we've learnt a lot around. We've got a lot of knowledge about parking and what works and what doesn't work, and what should be or should not be charged. The on-demand approach, which we are moving towards, is something that we would encourage the City Council, the Regional Council, to also use to make sure that fares are set such that the parks are used, that they're not too high so they spill onto our streets, but also that they're not so low that we aren't able to recover some reasonable operating costs and make sure that people are discouraged from driving to railway stations. We've got buses services that go to railway stations. To summarise, I really have to steal. Also, I have to thank the officers for the considerable work that they've put in to pull this together, and also for my fellow councillors, notably Councillor Pennant, Councillor Free and Councillor Brown, to help pull all of the elements of this together. It's actually become a comprehensive piece of feedback and very useful, I hope, for making a better regional public transport plan. But to steal the officer's words, the other takeaway is that public transport is a vital service. It's an essential for our urban development and our economic well-being. And also that the council appreciates the ongoing working relationship with the Regional Council, and hopefully we can extend this to the big projects that the NZTA are planning to do around our city. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, a seconder is Councillor Free. Do you want to speak now? Okay.
I will speak now. So, as many of you know, I'm extremely interested in transport, and I just can't help myself. Tony and I first bonded over giving submissions at the Regional Council, and I would have to say that, to be fair, I honestly think that our public transport is in such better shape this last decade than it's ever been, which doesn't mean to say it still couldn't be improved. But a lot of the suggestions that I made when I first became a councillor, like having transferable tickets, having off-peak concessions to encourage a better utilisation of the whole network, and quite a few other minor suggestions along the way, I've seen them implemented, and that gives me heart that in fact there is a good process here for us to actually give feedback and for some of it to be carefully considered and even taken on board. Now, in the time I do still have things on my wish list for public transport. It is incredibly important, and at a time when we are taking out more and more car parking in the city, it's important that we match that with a fit-for-purpose public transport system. And people have often said to me, you know, you're all about cycling, you know, you need to consider everybody else. And I've always said what we're doing in the city is about transport choice. Yes, I am a supporter of better cycling and better walking. I would love to see some better options for my Eastern Ward community to get through that Mount Vic tunnel. It's a soul-destroying experience, quite frankly, at the moment, to have to walk through it, and people do it all the time. And that would be one big thing on my tick list that I haven't managed to achieve for my community, is even a practical solution. And I'm going to put it out here publicly. I would like the Regional Council still to consider giving people free bus transport through that Mount Vic section on the bus, so that people could just pick up a bus, get on a bus, go through the bus tunnel and continue to walk. At the moment, people are having to walk through that tunnel. I worry about the school kids and the particulates that are in that tunnel. You can see the soot on the sides of the tunnel. That's what's going into our school kids' lungs. You know, the girls that walk to Mount Vic, the kids that go through that tunnel with their parents going to St Mark's, the kids that are coming the other way to go to our eastern suburb schools, they're all breathing in that twice a day. And quite frankly, I think our region should be prepared to step up with a simple solution to alleviate that. And I have got a solution. The airport bus, actually. It's never completely full. There's room for that bus to pick up people on one side of that bus tunnel and drop them on the other side. And guess what? Visitors to our city will know we're looking after people, we're looking after our walkers. So I'm just putting that out there because sometimes you don't get a chance to put things out there, and this is a forum to do it. But on the whole, this is a very thorough submission. I thank Sean O'Dane and his team for putting together a comprehensive draft submission for us to consider. I thank Councillor Pannett, who's always really proactive and got onto it really quickly with some of her suggestions, and many of them are in here. I'm sure you'll speak to them. And I thank Councillor Randall, of course. I do want to talk a little bit about the park and ride. I've often felt that park and ride has cost our ratepayers tens of millions to buy the land, to develop the parks, and the ongoing maintenance costs are $700,000 a year. I kind of think, actually, we do have a user pays component to most of our PT. It's fair enough that there should be a bit of a user pays component for the people that use that. So I'm supportive that the Regional Council's actually put that in their made a decision on that provisionally, subject to consultation. And I think we should actually thoroughly endorse that. But we have also pointed out some of the pitfalls. So there's a bit of material there for them to consider. The other thing is the damage caused to our streets by overweight buses. Now, I've been to enough regional transport meetings to know that the rail network is funded separately, but we are providing the transport network here for the buses. The city is actually providing it, and I think it's fair that there should be some acknowledgement of the extra wear and tear caused by legally overweight buses. And they pull into the streets, to bus stops, they pull out, and in the process of those twists and turns and stopping and starting, they actually do create a lot of damage to the roads. So that's my sum of it all today, and I think we've got to a good space with these amendments, and I'd like to see everybody support them.
Thank you. Now we have Councillor Young.
So just a couple of things. It's great that we have so many public transport advocates around the table, but what is the council doing about the removal of the bus stop outside the St James, outside Farmers, outside the old people's home in Kōrau, people who can't drive, who can't walk very far, and they can no longer get a bus because the bus stop has been removed. And there seems to be, when I ask people about this, sometimes they say it's the regional council say it's the city council. We should be doing, I mean, I agree with Councillor Free when she says we need a fit-for-purpose public transport, but people have to be able to get on and off at places where they want to get on and off, and the St James is vital. And if I was living in an old people's home, I would want to be able to catch the bus, but we removed the bus stop. So what is the council doing to fight for the retention of our bus stops? And the other thing I would just like to say is I lived in Britain for 20 years where park and ride was very much part of society, and you paid for parking your car while you caught the train into London. I was always staggered that it was not charged for over here, and it should absolutely be charged for. And that's all I have to say. It's a great submission, by the way. Thank you.
Wait, do you want an answer from an officer to your question? I mean, can we actually? Oh, we can't ask that. Okay. Councillor Paddock.
Well, where is our observer when we need him? Maybe he's online. There was so much peace and love over the submission. You know, it was a wonderful process, so thank you very much. Usually Councillors Randall, Free and I have some significant differences of opinion in the transport space, but we have come to some conclusions which are the same and have ended up in the submission. So thank you very much, and thank you to the officers. So I love buses so much. I happily call them socialism on wheels. It is just such great feeling to get onto a bus and just go, someone, a professionally trained driver is just going to take me to where I need to get to while I read a book or do whatever. It is a wonderful thing. In saying that, I do just want to briefly make the point that some people do not have that wonderful experience. I know I get feedback from TRAC about that there is harassment on our public transport. I know the regional council's working on that, but I do think that is one community group that does need to be included in their list of people who have needs. So just my very, very quickly, the things that I put in. I'd like to thank Councillor Randall for his elegance, because we had a disagreement over the issue of the price people pay depending on where they live. I said, well, I don't think that's fair, because sometimes people have to live out of the city because they can't afford to live closer. But he said, but this is the wrong way to do it. If we want to address the issue of equity, we deal with it through a subsidy, not through charging people a lot more to travel a shorter distance. So I really appreciate that, because that is basically the perspective that the regional council has taken. So I think that's incredibly helpful. So I have put in, because I support the Free Fares Coalition, I know others around the table do as well, that we need to keep pushing for those concessions to come back. Those under 25, so young people, total mobility holders, and those on low incomes is really important. I was surprised to see that the officers had been a little bit ambivalent about removing parking to get in bus lanes. Absolutely, it's got to happen. So the wording has been changed for that. I've also just, for me, actually getting the bus lanes are the biggest priority, even more importantly than the price of public transport. So we've just emphasised that. And I wanted to make Councillor Free happy, so we've put in some stuff around the eastern suburbs and Cobham Drive. And just the last one, I was surprised that we didn't have a perspective on dogs on buses. This is a dog-loving city, so I think we've put that they should be allowed on, but I have put subject to suitable controls, because we don't need a large dog harassing a small child or someone who might feel a bit vulnerable. I personally put my small dogs in a carrier when I do carry them, but I did hear a story about how someone even who had like a baby pack with their small dog in it was not allowed on the buses, and I think that would be perfectly reasonable. So as long as the dogs are well managed, I think people who are trying to get around with their dogs should be able to use buses. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
No.
No. Oh, okay.
No need to talk.
Councillor Chung.
Yeah, I think my question has actually already been asked. It was regarding the removal of bus stops. So yeah, sorry. And I think that we need to consider, again, we're considering all aspects of travel. And so I think that there's something not quite right about looking at the distance that you're actually travelling and the cost. And I look at the cost of actually travelling across town, and I actually think that in Wellington we're very comparable with other centres. And so I think that if I can catch a bus from Broadmeadows way across to Evans Bay for $4, to me it's actually quite a good, it's a good fare, it's a good deal. And so I'm not quite sure that that's actually the answer to actually getting more people onto buses. I think the reliability is actually more important. And I had a similar sort of event the other night. I had to wait. I watched a bus as it was coming across from Evans Bay through to Lambton Quay, and it took an hour and a half to actually cross that stretch across there. So I've never, that's the sort of thing that puts people off catching buses. So I think improvement in service is actually better than some of these other things. Thank you.
I'll just add my 5 cents worth at the end. I mean, the first thing I'd like to say is I really appreciate the way the councillors have actually worked with officers on this initiative, which I think is indicative of the fact that pretty much everyone around this table and in the building for that matter is very, very positive about public transport, and in particular bus public transport. So I think that's the strongest message that we're hopefully sending back to the regional council and our community, is that we do want a better public transport system. But we have got reservations, obviously, about what the Greater Wellington Regional Council has come up with in its draft plan. There are certain points in particular which I would like to reinforce my position on. One is the cross-subsidy issue, which I think is extremely unfair the way it's structured at the moment. I was talking to a young couple who've recently moved to Strathmore, and we were talking about bus fares, and it strikes me as totally unreasonable that people like them should have to pay more for their bus than somebody else, because they're effectively cross-subsidising other elements of the public transport network. And also I think one of the consequences of some of the deficiencies of the public transport that have been provided to the eastern suburbs is why the government is having to spend billions of dollars on additional tunnel capacity through Mount Victoria. If the public transport had remained as it was 20 years ago and had kept pace with demand, we would not be wasting billions of taxpayers' money on increasing State Highway number 1. So the deficiencies of public transport are having a direct negative economic consequence for New Zealand, and that's a real shame, and I definitely would attribute some of that fault from my long engagement to the Regional Council. I'm a very strong believer in Park and Ride. As you may know through past involvement with Park and Fly, if these facilities are actually kept again up with demand, then it makes an enormous difference. And the Wellington Airport's provision of excellent car parking facilities is an illustration of the benefits of charging a suitable amount of money so that people can actually access the airport. And there's no reason at all why Greater Wellington Regional Council couldn't have the same sort of model with respect to parking to catch public transport. And I'd just also like to put in a plug there for the hospital to do the same. Dogs not being allowed on the buses in Wellington is an obscenity in my view. It's something which is grossly unfair, and I think it's utterly unreasonable that when I go to Auckland I can take my dog on the bus, but I can't take my dog on the bus in Wellington, and I've got an absolutely lovely little dog. So it's and not only that, but I would be more than happy to actually pay for my dog to go on the bus because she doesn't have super gold. So, and I totally agree with Councillor Free's comments that that overweight buses should have to pay a fair price for damaging the road. So, thank you very much for the positive engagement on this issue. And one last plug. I would also really endorse Councillor Young's observations about removal of bus stops. Quite often in the mornings I walk in here from where I live. I walk past the St James. The St James bus stop is one of, if not the most popular one in that part of the city. The idea that the Regional Council is going to stop the buses stopping there is completely absurd. So I think that is a bit of a shame as well. But altogether, I think it's just great that we are so passionate about better public transport in Wellington, and we're quite unified on this issue, which is also great. And now I have got Councillor McNulty who would like to say something.
Yeah, I wasn't going to speak, just encouraging the Chair to make this submission in person to Greater Wellington. I've submitted in terms of having the Tawa on demand extended along with Councillor Randall. The Tawa Community Board has come in at times. They're a lovely bunch at Greater Wellington around the table. Their chambers are much nicer than ours, and I just think the messages and sentiments expressed within the submission will be better put if we take the effort as councillors to go into their whare. So that's my contribution.
Right of reply, sorry.
Thank you. So thank you, councillors, for all the support for this. I want to say that the City Council and the Regional Council are having an open, honest conversation, and this is part of that. We need to recognise the Regional Council is in charge of public transport, and it's their plan that we're commenting on. Equally, they're welcome to come and work with us on our plans, and this is how the city goes forward. I too am concerned about their policy with respect to removal of bus stops. That's not in this plan, though. This plan is an overarching plan for direction. It's a 10-year plan. It's got $2 billion worth of investment in it. It's quite high level and quite principled, and overall the City Council supports it. The removal of bus stops need to be done at a more direct level, and I know that the City and Regional Council and councillors will continue to have a conversation with the Regional Council and at specific areas. I also appreciate the comments from Councillor Pennant around fares and subsidies. I would note that the City Council does support the Regional Council's targeted fares, which try and give lower fares to people who have either higher needs or we really just want to encourage to start on public transport like younger people. Lastly, I just want to say that the officers and the councillors have put together, this is a really big deal for us, public transport. It's always a big deal even though it's not our responsibility, and I am both surprised and heartened by the level of engagement around this. It's a key element to our overall city's development, and so I thank you all, and hopefully you will vote for this. Thank you.
Now we're going to vote, I think. How do we want to actually do this vote? Oh, can we just vote for the whole shooting box? Okay. I wore my green shirt especially.
And can we get a division? Can we a division?
Written. We're waiting. Yep. Thank you. Wow. Well done. Congratulations. Fantastic chairing.
Thank you.
You can all buy me a drink afterwards. We just have a short adjournment to sort out a couple of wording changes. So 5 minutes if that's all right. We will reconvene, and please welcome Liam Hodgetts to introduce the report, which is the decision register updates and upcoming reports.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So, look, we'll take the report as read because I understand there are some amendments to be discussed. I've got 3 officers here, Vida, Brad and who have I missed? Claire, is it? Who will be able to take questions on the amendment once it's introduced. But if there are any questions on the current report, happy to take them, and then we'll move to the amendments.
Yeah, are there any questions about the current report? No? No questions? In that case...
needs to be moved.
Is there a mover for the motion, which is me? Would somebody like to second it? Councillor Matthews, can we just vote? Do we vote? Oh, we don't vote on it. Okay, right. Okay, is there any debate?
I'd go to the movers of the amendment.
Now we'll go to Councillor Deputy Mayor. Oh, sure. Okay, so
Now.
That's now.
I have no microphone.
Right. Great. Kia ora tātou. Just thank you. Please note, just to flag that the wording of this amendment is now slightly different to the one that I circulated to councillors yesterday. Thank you to the team for helping with that. Councillor O'Neill will second the amendment. So I just want to acknowledge that this might be a little bit of a surprise for people, but I think I just want to go back to the backstory a little bit. And thanks submitters Jade and Kieran for coming in this morning, and particularly for Jade, as it was very brave to speak the way she did about the trans community. So just on Monday, the 3rd of March, after an excellent Newtown festival, I awoke to the debacle with Wellington Water, but also my email and social media pinging off with the Berempore community acknowledging the trans flag that had been painted on the footpath on the corner of Luxford and Rintoul Street, and their chimes of support and excitement about it. So I just want to acknowledge that it was one of those moments as a councillor where you're working with these really big decisions that impact future generations and their, and then at the same time you've got your community calling out to you. So over the next week, it turns that officers had to remove the flag because of safety concerns, but since then I've been working alongside the community and our officers, and also track just to let them know what was going on, so our advisory group, just to see what council could do. So as it turns out, there were murals that were part of the Berempore upgrade that have not gone, that we haven't gone ahead with. So what we're asking here is to seek budget and to ask officers to look into, to work with the community to find a space to implement the trans flag as either street art or a public mural in Berempore. So I think what we've heard this morning is that we've heard the value of street art. We've heard about how Berempore has really stepped forward as an ally. We are an inclusive place that celebrates our diversity. And as a community, I know we're a community that really want people to feel like they belong. So this has been really important mahi for me. It's been at a challenging time, but as a councillor, it is my job not only to think about the big issues, but also to listen to my community and act when they've asked me to act. So today I'm really seeking your support to help Berempore be an ally. As we heard, it's a small but mighty impact. So I do thank you for your support, and thank Councillor O'Neill for your support and for seconding.
Thank you. I think now, do we have any questions of the officers? I think that's the next stage, is it? Yeah. So are there any questions of officers that you'd like to raise? Councillor Lee Chung, we'll start with you.
Vida and Brad, sorry, Councillor, just come and sit on the table here. Sorry, Moana? Yep.
Okay, I would like to ask the officers if it's feasible for them to engage with all members of the community to actually get their feedback on it, because it seems like from the questions, the questions I asked earlier, they didn't really quite answer that question.
So through both the street change projects and the town centre beautification project, we have had extensive engagement with the local community. We have quite a good database of a wide range of different people that live in that community. Without having actually really thought about this much before today and late yesterday, I think probably we would look at that database to engage with that community, and that includes things like the Residents Association, the businesses, and people that have submitted on the artworks that are there today, and all the street changes.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Now, when you engage with them, would you be talking to them, or would you be asking them about the different types of art? Because some type of art, I don't understand anything about art, but some art is very controversial, and some is acceptable by everyone. So, would you actually be asking these people these things?
We'd be doing as directed by the committee, so engaging with them on implementing a trans flag in Berempore.
Okay, so when you look at this, does that give you, what does that actually tell you to do? So when you say you're actually going to go and do what we ask here, does that actually do that? Will this amendment say that you can actually go out and ask them about what sort of art would you actually like to see? Because I wouldn't like to have surprises put on people when they say, well, I didn't realise that's what you meant by art, so.
Sorry, I think the instructions are super clear. Request the officers report back to the committee on the progress of implementing a trans flag installation in Berempore. It's pretty obvious what their question is going to be, which they're going to be asking the community.
But that's not. We're on questions. Keep going with the questions.
Keep going, Ray. Okay, so next question is Councillor Young.
I'll just do my little girl voice because the mic's not working. So my question is, big girl voice now. My question is really the cost, but also just thinking of the precedent. This is the question: is Councillor Chung aware that art should be controversial and often surprise people? That's the question. But the other one is, some of you may not be aware that we have. So I have mixed views about this proposal, but I would just like to remind you that one of the most popular statues in Wellington. Are you aware that one of the most popular statues in Wellington? What?
Questions of officers.
Oh, do you think councillors are aware? Do you think councillors are aware that one of the most popular statues on Wellington waterfront is Solace in the Wind, that was put up without council approval, and of course not funded by council, and it is now, kind of one of the high points of the Wellington waterfront? Are officers aware, or do the officers think councillors are aware of that?
I cannot comment as to what councillors are aware of or not.
I think they probably are now. Any more questions, Councillor Young? Councillor Calvert.
Okay, so I want to get down into the process of this and the delegations of this committee and the area of focus. So the first one talks about progress, the implementation. So we haven't determined the implementation, so I just, or voted for that. So I just want to understand, do you believe that this is worded appropriately, given this is not in the area of focus or delegation of this committee, first point, and second point is that no one has made a decision on implementing such an installation?
So my interpretation of that is that we would use the 2.1 would be what we went out and talked to the community about, and then we return with the paper as directed in point 2 based on what we've been instructed to do in point
But it doesn't read that way. So I know that might be your interpretation, but I'm concerned that there's no clarity in how these amendments have been reworded since last night because.
Question.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get to make sure that we have got a clear and an appropriate amendment in front of us. So I'm really asking for officers, because you're talking about 2.1 coming first before 2. So I just, it's to me, I don't think these are in order.
Councillor, we can reword Amendment 2.
So how would you word it then? Because we've got to ask questions on what's in front of us.
Let's adjourn so you can have a conversation.
Are you going to?
The amendment. Thank you very much for Councillor Calvert.
It's going up now.
And Deputy Mayor Foon for working on these. So this is the new words.
Not those ones.
No,
Yeah, not those ones, but just put it up. There they are.
So under the previous sequence of questions, we actually did have a comment from Councillor Hohaya, Apio Iwi Hohaya. Do you still want to speak? No. And Councillor Free, you're next in the queue if you've got any questions or comments.
My questions have all been satisfactorily answered, and I cannot say fine.
So we haven't got any more questions of our officers. Thank you very much. So now I think we move on to the seconder, which is Councillor O'Neill. Do you want to? Okay, so is there any debate? Councillor Pettit.
Thank you.
You need to put your hand up because we know you're going to have something to say.
Oh, yeah. Well, Rainbow Wellington. I'd just like to thank the mover and the seconder for raising this and the community. And I really appreciated MP Julianne Genter's point around painting the roads, particularly. It's got a co-benefit. Couple of points. We are a queer-friendly city, but we are also starting from a very low bar if you look around the world. So everything we can do to make ourselves better in this space is something that I would strongly support. And apart from anything, it's going to look beautiful. And just so we just need to keep going with the program. We are working with officers at TRAC on a work program to support rainbow communities. It's modest, but hopefully it will make a difference. Just the other point I want to make briefly and very respectfully is that I am a little bit disappointed by the process around this because what was come up with by the mover was fine. And I think when we have huddles at the front, that can just be a little bit tricky. But I'm glad that we have got to a space where we are going to implement something. We're not going to discuss whether we're going to do it. We are going to do it.
What's wrong with cuddles at the front? Sorry, did I mishear you? Has anybody else got anything they wish to raise, debate? No? Okay. Councillor O'Neill, you get the last word.
Hi. Yeah, I was just going to speak in strong support of this amendment and to really awhi the Deputy Mayor and the local ward councillors for this work. We know that public art like this kind of affirms that we belong not just in private spaces but in public. And I am really heartened to hear from the community this morning. We know that Wellington shines really bright when we show love to our trans and queer community in Wellington. Proved that time and time again. When Posey Parker came along, we organised thousands and thousands of people to come to Civic Square, and that protest turned into a party. It was a really great time, and it's something I'm really proud of this council for, which is showing that solidarity. So, yeah, I really encourage you to support this amendment today. There will be a report back, so you'll have loads more updates and time to get more info, but yeah, ngā mihi nui, and just a big acknowledgement to our trans community and the two local ward champions.
Thank you. Right of reply, Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Councillor Calvert, for helping steer in a way that we can all of us can stand behind. So I really appreciate your input on that, and hopefully help with the location at the due time. But I just want to say thanks everybody, because I know that's just taken a little bit of time, and I get very anxious when we're wasting time, so I don't like doing that. But I just want to remind everyone that where this is coming from is inclusive, as out of a want to be inclusive, safe, belonging, and celebrating our diversity. And quite simply, that is why I live in this city. So kia ora.
Thank you. Do we now vote on this? So, councillors, would you like to now vote on this amendment? Poiwi Kelly. Is she gone? Okay. That is passed. So now we move back into debate, and Councillor Randall would like to raise an amendment.
Yes, I was wondering if the text of my amendment can be put up. So while that's happening, I'll just briefly outline the amendment. This is to request officers arrange an update from NZTA to elected members on the major projects in Wellington City and how they're progressing and how they're to be aligned with the other transport projects. We recently had a very good update from the Regional Council about how their public transport plans for the city were going to align with our plans, bus priority lanes, etc. And equally important are the two big projects that will affect Wellington City that are being led by NZTA with the support of the government, which are the second Mount Vic Tunnel project and the Petone to Granada Link project. I understand the second Mount Vic Tunnel project is sort of going first. Being in the Northern Ward, I'd rather that we got Petone to Granada Link first, but I can understand that the people of the East Wellington and South will get great benefits from this. However, it is also critically important that different agencies doing these transport projects are aligned. I mean, it doesn't take away the lead that each agency will do for their projects, just as we discussed with the Regional Council and the Regional Public Transport Plan. But it's important as a city that we have joined up planning, and I've always been very hot on that. NZTA, we've heard very little from them, and that's a big concern. And so I don't necessarily think that that's out of intentions, but I would want to say, you know, we're here, our roads are going to join on to your project, and the benefits from your project are to our citizens and residents. So I just want officers to empower officers to say, to go and arrange such an update and explain both what's happening and how everyone is working together. And so hopefully you can support this amendment to the work plan. I've checked with the Mayor and I've checked with officers, and they're both supportive of having this work on the work plan. Thank you. And I have a second in Councillor Calvert.
Does anybody have any questions or observations or other than Councillor Pettit?
Of course I do. Liam, can I just ask, I'm not going to vote against this. I'd love to hear what NZTA has got to say, but how a mega motorway is going to align with other transport programs in our city?
What? Are you saying it's like mega?
No. I'm asking how a climate change inducing roading project can be aligned with the other projects that we're doing.
Mr. Chairman, well, I like to think of it as a transport network. The understanding, and the network operates together in perfect harmony, like you all, yes. And in this particular amendment, I see that as what Councillor Randall's looking for, and I think I'm sure a number of councillors will agree, is that of all the three entities dealing with transport on our road network, they're all talking together and sequencing development together. So that's how I read that, at its core, that's how I read that amendment.
To your point, Councillor Pannett, you first have to know what they are proposing to do in order to check the alignment.
Councillor Young.
Without wishing to sound like a complete bore, could we mention something about the removal of bus stops in there?
No, I don't think you can. That looks like the end of the debate. Shall we vote on this one? Oh, okay. Does anyone want to debate this? Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, since with that hairstyle, you're so inconsequential. Sorry, okay.
But let's talk about hairstyles again, Mr. Brown, Chairperson Brown, because we've had this debate on Tuesday. Look, I'm happy to second this, and there's a couple of points. I'm dying to find out what actually NZTA is going to do to help us reduce congestion around our city and be able to open up more space for pedestrians, because if we do have a proper bypass through our city, that's exactly what will happen. And I'm more than happy for somebody else to be paying for it rather than our council, which was what was the case under Let's Get Wellington Moving. And I think it's really important that we do get these regular updates, not to mention again Let's Get Wellington Moving, but I will, because, you know, we let them go off and do stuff. Not that they did a lot of stuff. I think we had a crossing and a roundabout. And talking about that roundabout, what I've just found out is, yes, they put a lovely roundabout in. They spent $14 million. Half of it came from our ratepayers, but they forgot to think about who's going to tend to the garden around it. And so now we're picking up that bill, that cost, that contract. So in the meantime, for the last 12 months, it's been looking rather tatty, one of the entranceways into our city. So it's really important that we do find out when other people are working, other organisations are working in our city that we're responsible for, that they do tell us what they're planning and when they're planning it, and making sure that they have comprehensive plans to actually deliver the outcomes that we're looking for. So I'm very happy to support this, and it certainly needs to be, when they do arrange an update, it certainly needs to be regular. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it now it's Councillor Free?
Yeah, look, I know we've talked about inviting the NZTA to come and speak to us, but I really do congratulate Councillor Randall for being proactive and putting this on paper. It means that it will happen, I hope, as long as NZTA are willing to come and speak to us, and I hope they are. It's really important. This is a missing gap that's of extreme importance to our city. We have State Highway 1 running right through to the eastern suburbs, and I can tell you it's actually frustrating that we don't have better connection with what's going on. For example, they're resurfacing Cobham Drive. Some of the intersections are even replacing lights, and yet we have a bus priority project that involves those intersections, and it seems to me there's been a missed opportunity to actually work more collaboratively and get the outcomes we want at the same time as there's major investment going on in those two intersections, one of them being the one that the buses actually go right through. You know, another example would be dropping speeds. The government's dropping speeds or planning to drop speeds on Ruahine Street and Cobham Drive, and we have roads that actually connect to those. You're coming up to the tunnel in Haitaitai, you've got local traffic actually feeding into a State Highway 1. If they increase the speed there's already been a lot of collisions, and it's something that I feel we should have actually, 120 collisions. 520 collisions. There's minor collisions, there's major collisions, as people are trying to come into the tunnel, and they're going to put the speed up by 20 kilometres an hour from 50 to 70, and no sort of round the table opportunity for us to even ask questions about what other thinking's gone on around that. And that's not to mention some of the other local roads. You know, there's also an intersection at the top of Wellington Road, a local road trying to feed into to high-speed traffic. So, you know, the tunnel, I raised with Greater Wellington, can we do something about people who walk from Haitaitai to the city? A very short walk, and walking is meant to be our #1 priority. Can we do something about that? Because we don't even know how long the tunnel's going to take to get delivered. So is it worth us actually pressing on the Regional Council to do something in the interim? Because yes, there's a solution maybe, but what's the time frame for all of this? So it's really crucial for our work that we have a forum that we can actually continue to talk to them now that Let's Get Wellington Moving has gone. Not that I think it was ever brilliantly effective, but it's gone, so we actually have nothing. We're in a vacuum, and the Regional Council have expressed the same feeling of being in a vacuum. So yes, this is a great thing to put on our forward agenda, and I just hope everyone's going to wholeheartedly, we'll see a sea of green again. And thanks to Ray, by the way, he told me he was going to wear a green shirt today, and he has. And Tim, we're all voting green.
Councillor Pennant.
Just really briefly, I would just like to say, from a process point of view, I don't think we should ideally be doing this too often, because we should just have updates organised. But anyway, it's fine. So I always think we should listen to scientists in relation to transport. So, you know, just the alarm about how we are continuing to fail to cut our emissions. So I just cannot even believe that we are back here again, decades and decades and decades. NZTA pushes one way, the environmentalists push the other way, and we still have not got to a point where we are rational about climate change, sustainability, and what makes a good city. You know, this is ridiculous. You cannot have massive amounts of money spent on basically a mini motorway with all the stuff that we're trying to do in sustainability. So it's in a sense it's a nonsense. So it will be good to have NZTA before us to again challenge them. In fact, Ms. Chetwynd and I have history over this because they would come back and we would ask them, what are you doing about climate change? And we just could not ever get to a place where we got to agreement. Deputy Mayor Foon and I also have history. We just have never been able to align ourselves. So it would be great if we could, but I'm afraid that we'll be sort of in this cycle of death where we just nothing will ever happen because we'll never agree.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. You have a right of reply.
Thank you. Interesting points, some of them about the topic. Very rewarding. I'm tempted to engage as well, but I'll just focus on the piece of work. Look, information is the input we need to know whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, whether that's the point where we debate what's going to happen. I think it's very important, Councillor Pennant, that these things just don't happen, and it's important that officers have a mandate to go and speak on our behalf, to say this is an important element of our city's development is working together. We're working together with regional council, and I'll just say verbally, it's not in the amendment, but you know, I would expect officers to work with regional council as we might do a combined thing. I mean, that's over to the officers, as long as we can make progress to understand what's happening, and even if the answer that NZTA are going to do their own thing, that is information we need to understand to go forward. So I hope you can support this. We need to have this information and then we can engage with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can now vote. Right. Okay. Written. And that is presumably, yes, that is passed. Thank you. Now we go back to the original debate. And I think we finished the debate on that. So it's actually, I get the right of reply as the original mover. And I will keep that brief, saying let's just vote on the original amendment. And the amendment substantive, thank you, yes. Great, thank you very much. That is the conclusion of the meeting. If you could join me in the karakia. Oh.